So, students of class 8, a new lesson, the Christmas Truce. Christmas is universally recognized as a time of peace and goodwill towards all men that we know. Can this spirit prevail in parts of the world torn by political, racial, and religious conflict? What can Christmas mean to soldiers on the field of battle, expecting at any moment to have to maim or kill fellow human beings or be killed themselves? Now, in common in general, this Christmas is recognized as a time of peace and goodwill towards all men. But can that same mental attitude be reflected by the soldiers in the war, in the battle? So, well, the soldiers are expecting to maim or kill fellow men or get killed or be killed themselves. So, what we are going to find here is a kind of a letter that a British soldier serving his country during World War One writes to his sister on Christmas Day and shares with her a magical and miraculous incident that took place on no man's land on a battlefield somewhere in France one unforgettable Christmas Eve. So this is what we find here in the first slide. Let us move on to the next slide to read the things. So here it is, Christmas Day 1914. My dear sister Janet, it is 2 in the morning and most of our men are asleep in their dugouts. Dugouts is that underground cabin-like attachment to the trenches. Trenches are those drain-like things that the soldiers make in which they stand or hide themselves, and in front of them on the surface there happens to be the sandbags to protect themselves from the bullets of the enemy soldiers. So all men were in their dugouts and were asleep. Yet I could not sleep myself before writing to you of the wonderful events of Christmas Eve. No, why he could not sleep? Because he wanted to write whatever he saw or experienced during that Christmas Eve. In truth, what happened seems almost like a fairy tale, and what he had witnessed was not less than a fairy tale. And if I hadn't been through it myself, I would scarce believe it. He would not have believed it if we had not been a part of it. Just imagine, while you and the family sang carols before the fire there in London, I did the same with enemy soldiers here on the battlefields of France. Now that soldier and the others were in the battlefields of France, and the German soldiers were there, and they were there. Now they sang carols in front of a fire, just like other people had done on that eve in their houses. So it was next to impossible, but it happened, and he has tried to record it in his letter to his sister. So what comes next? Let us see, and move on to the next slide. As I wrote before, there has been little serious fighting of late. Now the fighting has become very less, and no serious fighting was going on. The first battles of war left so many dead that both sides have held back until replacements could come from home. Now they were actually waiting for the replacements for the dead soldiers or injured soldiers who had been taken away from the battlefield. No one was recruited in their places, so They were waiting for that. So we have mostly stayed in our trances and waited. So what they were doing, they were spending the time in the trances and were waiting. But what a terrible waiting it has been, knowing that any moment an artillery shell might land and explode beside us in the trance, killing or maiming several men, and in daylight not daring to lift our heads above ground for fear of a sniper's bullet. Now this is what was going on there. No serious fighting. Why? Because so many soldiers died, and no one was actually recruited or appointed in their places. So they were waiting for recruitment of new soldiers, and they were passing their time in the trances. And every moment they were aware of the fact that at any moment that artillery shell might land and explode beside them in the trance, killing or maiming several men. In the daylight, they dared not to lift their heads above ground. Why? Because there was the fear of snipers' bullets. Snipers may target their heads, so they dared not to lift their heads. So this much we have learned in these three slides of this presentation. We'll come up with new things in the next presentation. Till that time, bye students. Thank you.